So some really good news between Ukraine's Zelenskyy and China. Zelenskyy had his first phone call with China's president, Xi Jinping. And the Chinese have, expressed their support for a peace deal that they could mediate between Russia and Ukraine to put an end to the war there and essentially continue their hot streak. You know, the Chinese very recently, they succeeded in mediating a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And so they're essentially trying to do the same thing between Russia and Ukraine. And the Chinese put forward this 12-point peace plan, which we'll get into in a second. As I said, this was the first phone call between Zelenskyy and Xi Jinping since the start of the war. Let me just play you a couple of clips of Zelenskyy discussing or describing the call that he had with Xi Jinping. Let me play this clip of Zelenskyy talking about their call, okay?
Of course, I gave all the diplomatic and public and not public to President of China, to leader of China, and I want to speak with him because I had contact with him before full-scale war, but during all this year, more than 1 year, I didn't have, and I really wait when our teams will find the solution.
But no plans
yes.
at the moment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you invite him here to Ukraine?
Oh yes, we are ready. We are ready to see him here.
Here's another one. Here's another clip.
Говорив сьогодні із лідером Китаю. Це була тривала, доволі раціональна розмова. Про такі розмови зазвичай говорять, що вони відкривають можливості. Зараз є можливість дати нову енергію нашим відносинам України та Китаю. Є можливість застосувати політичний вплив Китаю, щоб повернути силу принципам і правилам, на яких має триматися мир. Україна та Китай, як і абсолютна більшість світу, однаково зацікавлені у міцності суверенітету націй та територіальній цілісності. У дотриманні головних безпекових правил, зокрема щодо неприпустимості погроз ядерною зброєю та розповсюдження ядерної зброї світом. Ми однаково зацікавлені, щоб ситуація навколо Запорізької атомної станції нарешті була повністю убезпечена і щоб атомні станції взагалі ніколи знову не використовувалися заради військових цілей. А саме таке цинічне використання атомної станції Росія намагається зробити нормою. Дуже важливо, що Китай має однаковий з нами погляд на свободу мореплавства і торгівлі. Я поінформував пана Сі Цзіньпіна про наші зусилля щодо відновлення морського експорту продовольства. І я почув слова підтримки нашої Чорноморської зернової ініціативи, її подовження, а також підтримку наших гуманітарних зусиль, зокрема програми «Зерно з України». Звичайна суттєва частина розмови – це наші погляди на те, як можна відновити справедливий мир. Я представив українську формулу миру, її конкретні пункти. Ми домовились продовжити наші комунікації.
Right, so, he mentioned, and here you really have to give the Ukrainians some credit, because they had nuclear weapons at the end of the Cold War, and they decided to give them up. So, I mean, I think, there are other countries like South Africa who were developing a nuclear weapons program and decided to forego that before completion. But the Ukrainians actually had a lot of nuclear weapons and nevertheless decided to give them up. So, when Zelenskyy is talking about non-proliferation, he definitely means it. And he's, of course, now talking about the Zaporizhia nuclear energy plant. But, nevertheless, he makes some really good points. And everything that's happened now is that, within the span of a few days after him announcing this call and then it also being confirmed by the Chinese, here's what happened. So Zelenskyy invited Xi Jinping to visit Kyiv for talks. noting that they had contact before the war, but nothing since it began. Yes, and they talk about here at this point that I've highlighted in yellow. They talk about the likelihood of China actually wanting the war to end, and I think this is some this is some typical anti-Chinese nonsense where they try to make you think like, oh, the Chinese, they're unreasonable and they back everything that Russia wants and it's unconditional, and I think that's complete nonsense, because the Chinese, since the very beginning, their position is completely neutral, and they actually mean that. And you can look at this in a different area, which is the Israel-Palestine issue. The Chinese are also equally as neutral. Now you can see that both in two different ways. You can say that, by remaining neutral, they are helping the Russians or helping the Israelis or whatever. Or you can see it from the Chinese point of view, which is basically, we're not going to forego relations with anyone. Anyone who's interested in having relations with us, then that's good and fine. And I think they do genuinely mean it. But of course, you can also, we have to say that when it comes to Russia kind of opening itself, towards the east, and rerouting all of the oil through the east or the global south, and turning away from the West, definitely the Chinese support that, because it's good for them as well. But it doesn't come out of disdain for the Ukrainians or the West or something like that. I don't think it's anything to do with that. In any case, I don't know why they try and inject this crap in there, but it's BBC, so let me show you what the Chinese are putting out. They've put out this 12-point plan. So for them, this is their way to try and stop the war, and you can find it on the their foreign ministry's website. I got to be honest. I mean, the whole thing, it definitely, it's like exactly like I just told you. It's very, very neutral. They don't blame anyone. It's just like, you need to adhere to the UN Charter. You need to adhere to these agreements on nuclear non-proliferation and safety. And they praise the only diplomatic things that are happening. For example, the grain corridor in the Black Sea is very, very Chinese. It's just straight up nothing but things that can actually be implemented, right? And of course, they say that nuclear war, I mean, I don't know why this needs repeating, but I guess it does. They say that nuclear confrontation is unacceptable. Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. So it's pity not many people in the West understand that. Just to show you like the difference in mentality, on I'm not saying this was coming from Western officials. I mean, definitely in their policy making, but in the West, it's kind of like, well, what about a tactical nuclear strike? Maybe we can do that. It really says a lot. It really says a lot. And I don't mean that in a good way. The Chinese government, they've sent a special representative on Eurasian affairs to Kiev, to Ukraine. And Zelenskyy appointed a former minister as ambassador to Beijing. Okay, so that's what I meant when things are already moving since the call. So it wasn't just some some empty talk and we're engaging on things. No, they're actually trying to move forward on this stuff. And they mention here exactly what I just told you, which is that the Chinese are trying to continue off of their hot streak. And I was joking too, because the other day the Chinese also proposed mediating Israel-Palestine, that they should maybe not push their luck too much, press their luck. But obviously I'm being cheeky, and I don't know. I do feel that this is good, because and it really says a lot, because the Americans should be doing this, right? The Americans should be doing this stuff. Britain should be behaving like this. But you don't see it. Look at the difference in policy. So for them, the Chinese, for them, the way of ending the war is you actually engage and you do it diplomatically. But the way to end the war in the West is let's send more weapons. You know why? Because there's money to be made. And all these companies are based in Britain and they're based in North America. The biggest weapons companies, so BAE Systems, Raytheon, Northrop, etc. Because there's money to be made. Now, that doesn't mean the Chinese don't have, their own defense industry and so on, but it's in, you can't compare that. Just because the Chinese have a very capable and advanced military and a nuclear armed one, it doesn't mean that they, try to provoke wars and forego diplomacy on purpose so that situations like this happen where there's money to be made. They don't. Their way of making money is completely different, right? Their mindset on business and economic growth is not rooted in militarism, right? There's a big difference there. The thing that's actually surprised me, I was not expecting to see Zelenskyy as optimistic or enthusiastic about this, because I was expecting him to kind of have the same bias against the Chinese as the BBC article, because that's kind of the mainstream thinking in the West. And I guess that's my mistake. I'm pleasantly surprised by Zelenskyy, and I'm happy to see the Chinese actually push this, because they've said many times before their foreign ministry and Xi Jinping, they've said things like this, but this is the first time you actually see them acting on it. And another thing that dawned on me, and again, I could be completely wrong, but this could be the Russians who are pushing the Chinese because they're sick of the war, right? The Russians might be sick of the war. By their own account, right? According to the Russians themselves, this was supposed to be a special military operation, and it was supposed to last a couple of weeks, right? Now it's almost a year and a half, and yes, while this is, when we look at the economic changes, while this is a good opening for the global South and for BRICS Plus and so on, obviously, no one wants to be at war, and I think the Russians, what they were expecting is that was very different from what's actually happening, from what's actually transpired. I really do think that they were convinced this was going to be over in a matter of weeks or days or something, and they were mistaken if that's what they believe, because this thing is taking its toll on everybody. So anyway, going back to my main point, it could be, I'm just saying, it could be the Russians who are pushing the Chinese to get this thing to get the ball rolling, for many different purposes. Maybe because they think the Ukrainians will perceive a Chinese initiative as being more genuine than a Russian one for whatever reason. Maybe because they want to save face, right? Because it would be they would look weak or something. I mean, I don't know how you would look weak trying to stop a war, but okay. There are many reasons. There are many reasons that this could be the case. In any case, either way, it's definitely in the interests of everybody, Ukraine, Russia, China, and the whole world, that this thing stops as fast as possible. I do hope that they follow up on this thing and actually push for it the way that they were able to get this a feud, tension, some people even say Cold War between Saudi Arabia and Iran stopped, because that is really quite a feat. That is really quite a feat. I don't think anybody expected that. That was really, really something difficult. I don't know, how they managed to do it. But, I in any case, we talked enough about that, and I went through it in detail a million times. But my point here is that credit to them, and, credit to Zelenskyy and Xi Jinping. And I hope they actually meet face to face, because the way you speak much more differently when you're two leaders together than through delegates or through representatives and so on, right? Like, this thing is good, but for them to really maybe get some stuff done, they need to meet face to face. So yeah, I'll leave it on a positive note. That's that.